With UCLA's poor start, Nico Iamaleava's camp is already looking to transfer elsewhere for 26. Texas Tech, Miami.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. What we're talking about today in this very shortened edition, Nico's potential new home in 2026. And it looks like, it's sounding like, especially from what I'm hearing, Nico's camp is already putting the feelers out. That seems like the obvious kind of how it's been going. And from what I'm hearing, that UCLA is like, wait a minute, they are going to be in the hunt for a 2026 quarterback because they lost a lot of guys who left since Nico came to UCLA. So think they had a big exodus. And now Nico is reportedly thinking about going to Texas Tech or Miami. Now, it's not going to be the same, I think, where he comes out and just sits out the rest of the season. He already burned that redshirt year. There's no point in him entering the transfer portal and sitting out. He needs to get his stock back up. So there's really kind of three options here. It seems like at the moment, it's either Miami, could be a Texas Tech, or he plays well enough that he says, forget this college nonsense and goes to the NFL draft. And mind you, is this Nico himself, or is this his camp, his father? What is this whole situation looking like? Well, let's kind of analyze the situation. You've got Texas Tech, who just went in there and dominated Utah. But this last weekend was very interesting because their fifth-year quarterback, Baron Morton, was taken out of the game, and their redshirt freshman, Will Hammond, led Texas Tech to late domination of the Utes, a team who UCLA Nico couldn't even move the ball against in week one at all. And Texas Tech's redshirt freshman went out there and dominated to the tune of almost 200 yards from passing, rushing the ball, leading to 20-plus points late in that game against the Utes. So while Texas Tech might have been a potential option, it's something that if that redshirt freshman develops, or just that performance alone against Utah on the road in Salt Lake City, that could be enough to be like, they might say, nah, we're not going to go with Nico. We're going to go with our youngster after Morton's gone. I'm not fully in depth into what the Texas Tech situation is, but the redshirt freshman is performing like that against Utah, then maybe they might not go with Nico. They might let this youngster perform after Morton leaves, or maybe in this 25 season. But I'm not really diving into that quarterback situation. A more unique situation is you look at Miami, who's gone to the portal. That's like, all right, we're going to rejuvenate. We go with everything. And what Miami might go, well, they just went with Carson Beck, a big NIL opportunity for Beck to go in there. It's not like, in my mind, Beck has outperformed every player on the roster and in the country at quarterback. I think Nico could easily go in there, right system, the right support, and have some success. For Carson Beck, who comes in after, that weird elbow injury, he went from Georgia. Miami found himself to be, all right, that's a solid home for him as the sixth-year quarterback. And Nico, if he's just looking for a one-year home, Miami has proven to be that for him. From Cam Ward to now Carson Beck. This is Carson Beck's numbers through the first parts of this season. 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 73% completion percentage, 970 yards passing, about 240 per game. Not exactly Cam Ward-like numbers last year, which led him to be the number 1 overall pick. Completing a high percentage, but against Florida, he went 160 yards and a pick. All right, those aren't exactly big numbers against an SEC rival in the non-conference battle for Miami. So if you're wondering if Nico could go thrive in Miami, I think that could. Now, the UCLA fan to me is like, hey, sit here and sit through the drama and play through it, because UCLA is going to need a 2026 quarterback. They don't have anybody signed up in this 2026 class. And even if they did, he probably would have also decommitted, with everybody of note decommitting or really reassessing their options in this 26 class that the Bruins assembled. It was the top 20 class, and a lot of guys looking elsewhere. And the one thing they didn't get was a quarterback. All right. I wonder where UCLA could go, if it's internally, if it's now to the portal. But Nico is already assessing his options. His camp is, think about that money they're wanting to get from Tennessee, whether it was the offensive line, whether it was the coaching, but now the laughing stock is kind of what it looks like with Nico's optics. Coming to UCLA and the Bruins struggling. Yes, Nico is certainly the best offensive player they have. I was even joking with some of my UCLA buddies, and he's like, hey, why keep playing Nico if he's so obviously going to go? Well, the answer is Nico is still the best option for UCLA quarterback and the best player they have in offense. All right. So it is like, yes, we understand. Did he truly ruin the trajectory of his career transferring to UCLA at the timing he did, the way he did, and the optics of it all? It really set him back. And if there is a chance for success, and the two schools I've heard are Miami or Texas Tech at this point, maybe there's more out there. But with Texas Tech developing maybe a redshirt freshman, it could pivot to Miami, which has been one-year homes for quarterbacks. All right. Think about what Oklahoma was under Lincoln Riley, kind of getting transfer QBs, turning them into potential Heisman contenders. While Miami, not exactly turning back at this moment into a Heisman contender, but could be a step in the right direction, going to the ACC, a different conference, different place, and could be turned into something special. Now, if you're bouncing from school to school, are you going to pay him as much money? Is he going to get the deal that he wants? And is that just going to leave UCLA in the dust? And that means if Nico's gone, you're not going to expect Madden to stay. And they've been followed around with Jace Brown in terms of transferring, changing commitments. So a Nico departure could lead to 3 players with eligibility on this roster leaving for UCLA. All right. This could lead to 1 to 3. And that doesn't even include the players who are not playing. And I think we saw for UCLA, there is a player who is no longer playing. Mark Schroller announced his intent to not play football anymore. I forget the language he used, but he said he's not. And I've heard that there's 4 to 5 players who are not going to play, or they're just done playing football. Like they're done with the UCLA situation. So do you want what I've talked about before, a Nico that could potentially be damaged goods if you're a Miami fan, if you're a Texas Tech fan, if you're anyone in the country? Or is it good riddance and laugh? And I've even seen the Locked On Big Ten show talk a little bit, Tennessee, all these things. Now, that would be funny if he goes back to Tennessee. I'm not even going to put that out there. I've never heard anything like that officially, but I have heard a little bit teasing about Texas Tech and Miami at the moment. But at the moment, UCLA, they need their quarterback to play well. And for Nico, his best bet in the portal is to play well with the team that has struggled immensely. If he puts up solid numbers, all right, not Heisman numbers, not first team all Big Ten numbers, but numbers that are respectable for an offensive line that still has a lot to work with, or has, a lot of problems, a lot of holes to fill with a new offensive coordinator. I think there are still plenty of people that would give Nico another shot. And if they only have to deal with him for 1 year, why not Miami take that shot? And if Texas Tech's like, maybe Will Hammond's not the guy, then why not take that shot? Or anybody in that reign, right? Maybe you see Tulane pivoting quickly. Maybe goes to Tulane. Now, I haven't heard anything about Tulane. That's just me speculating now. That's not something I've heard. There's different quarterbacks. There's different spots you could go. Now, I think the ego of the situation could be very different. It's not like he's going to go from Tennessee, UCLA to Tulane. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But at some point, you need a home and you need somebody who's going to welcome you in. And those two schools in the ACC or the Big 12 keeps Nico out of the SEC. And I would think, is there going to be an SEC school that would be interested in Nico if and when he goes into the transfer portal, which it seems all but said and done in terms of a postseason opportunity? Does he shock everybody and go to the NFL draft with his, ceiling as low as it is? Still needs a lot of developments mechanically. I remember talking to Brian Smith of Locked On the Portal and Locked On Knowles that there's still a lot of things that he still needs to develop. And with the poor offensive line, he's got to find a way to be stronger in the pocket and deliver a strong ball over the middle that's not picked off. All 3 of Nico's interceptions have been over the middle this season, 1 in each game. Some tipped, some with the game on the line, and some just a poor read or 2. All right. But I still think he would be a solid fit for Miami if they want to go to another stopgap year quarterback, if that's where it's going to go. If he can just show enough on tape, that's where he could go. All right. Or Texas Tech. They got the NIL to appease the potential needs, right? You go from an $8 million deal for 3 years at Tennessee to now in between the $1 to $2 million range with state taxes at UCLA. That's not the best negotiating or the best situations, but they got stuck in a corner and they had to go to UCLA. And it seems like as soon as this portal is open, that they're going to go as quickly as possible and get out of this situation. Now, they could shock everybody and do something different. That's what I'm hearing. That's what it looks like. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And if you're like FanDuel and you like it and you like to bet, think about it. Player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. Quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays, your Saturdays, everything. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. It's going to do it for us here on Locked On UCLA. The journey to a potential new quarterback in 2026. Like, comment, subscribe, download. We'll talk about that here in the shortened edition of Locked On UCLA. In future episodes, we've got another coaching chat with a potential candidate, talking Dan Mullen with Jason Kelly. We've got Joe Tipton of On3 talking UCLA basketball recruiting coming up soon. And, of course, post-game reactions for UCLA and Northwestern. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.